is the firefighter one has it in there.
Yeah.
The wildlands operator has it in there, and the water supply operator has it.
Yep.
And buffer.
I'm just making sure, so when I make this, that I'm not messing it
The
up.
tiller in the area will already have it. And I think the reason why they do that is because some departments have people that only do that one job. And coming back to what you were saying, if they've already done it, just date it with the class that they already did. And I think that meets, talking with her, the only problem we may have is, and I think, Taylor already addressed it, they don't look at the date initiated. So if you have a date on there for communications that's before the date initiated, appears, as long as they took that communication class, the standard, that current.
Scott Laughlin, director, maybe I'm muddying up my head, but we're saying it's okay for communications to have done it 4 years ago. But now but we're also saying the driver, if they're going to an engine, we want them to do their cone course or whatever in the driver app vehicle. And so if they've done the driver book, it doesn't come over. And I get worried that sometimes people are gonna have that question when we hand them this task book. Well, what counts for what I did before and what counts that I have to do now? And that's my concern if we do go that route.
And I guess as like an agency, you could also just be like, this isn't an option. You have to do this every time this way. Like, so you can't use your firefighter one communications to apply to this. You have to do it again. So that, I guess having it as an either or gives it a little bit of flexibility. For me, I need specifics of what we are being, like what we're putting this in so that when I build this, I don't do it wrong.
Brooke, can you bring up the fire investigator? I know it's totally separate.
Yes.
But that way people can kind of see what that reward looks like.
Yeah.
That's been done in other task force already. The 1030 to read.
Let's see, it has colors.
Wait, what?
That's even got a color heading.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you have 78 levels of certification, it is really easy to lose track of consistency.
Explanation there.
Oh,
kinda
yeah.
has it already. So adding something like that for those sections that we say, you know what, this is the same as you've already done, so either do it here or you've already completed it here. But at the same time, if we're moving everything to one box, it's not as big a deal.
Can you, since you're there, can you keep scrolling down? Into the task book? Go on.
What are you looking for?
3 boxes.
Yeah, this one and technical rescue.
Yeah.
Still have 3 boxes.
But that's also, there's no like
Well, that's when
repetition.
the 4 ties in, it's like, it actually makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's all down there. So if we're only doing one box, it probably doesn't make a big difference, I'm sorry, but making a volunteer answer the phone 4 times, 3 times.
More than that.
And some of this was determined because it was so difficult to obtain the ability to do these tasks, not because it was just, a waste of time. So that's also part of why they decided to do this, because you can't just come across these situations all the time. So that is also probably a relevant thought. But
I think it's, even 12, yeah, it's repetitive, but I'm reading through it. Just refresh my memory. It's not those hard, that's not that hard checkboxes to get. It's simple radio communications, operating your iPad or MDC wherever you have, and I mean, it's run through those pretty quick, even if they're repetitive.
okay. So I don't really know where we stand on.
Keep communications, I suggest keep communications, everything, leave it up to the HJ how they're gonna market it, whether it's a previous class or not.
Okay,
And we just have to be able to document that on our training side for the DO to be able to see.
Yeah, making those notations in the task book that you're gonna make a copy of and put in a training file anyway is a good way of doing that. Brian Woodley for the record.
okay. So communications is one of the ones that, repeats a lot. Was there another thing that repeats a lot?
Some stuff that we are saying we want them to do in different types of apparatus.
Just for when I put this in the guide, I was gonna like note, okay, if somebody completes the firefighter one communications portion, you as the AHJ can determine that's covered, your checkbox for communications in any of the task books that require
I
that.
would probably just leave out when it's firefighter one and see if they've completed a communications class.
Sure, I'm
Yeah.
just using that as an example. If they've completed it that way,
So are we including 12.1.1 then? Because that's not comms. 12.1.1 is the general, I know all about the fire department one. And it gets deep into some weird stuff that I'm not sure that a pumper operator, things like the value of fire and life safety initiatives for the fire department mission, reduce firefighter line of duty deaths and fatalities, the role of other agencies for the fire department, aspects of the fire department's member assistance program, the importance of physical fitness and a healthy lifestyle to the performance of the duties of a firefighter, and the critical aspects of 1500. I mean, that's all firefighter one stuff.
That's not communication, that's general knowledge.
That's the general knowledge of the 12 point, of the 12 section.
Yeah, that's the general knowledge requirements of communication.
Yeah,
That's separate.
yeah, it's separate, it's 12.1. And 12.2.
12.2. And 12.2.
But I think that's in, so if it's in that one, is it in,
is it an aerial?
where's wildland? Then the wildland one too, I can easily see them dumping in the wildland.
But I think those are still separate from communications. If we're talking about just communications, 12.2, it stands for firefighter's complement. That was just involved using communications equipment technology, answering the phone. If they've done it in one class, when they've done that class, then the, well, then the.
It looks like the only place they put it in was pumper operator, because it's not in the wildland, it's.
Out in the aerial, not in the area.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
nothing's in the aerial,
It's just-
and
I
I don't
think
think
it's
it's
just
in
in
water, sunlight.
pumper.
And that's because they took away the firefighter one, so that's making up
Yeah.
the replacement of the firefighter one.
I was just curious. What you guys think?
Right, there's another question. These are task books. How many of these, so there's 7 different task books for the driver portions. How many of those have a specific classroom portion attached to it in addition to just the hands-on skills? Are any of these paired up with a class that you must take with it, or is it literally just hands-on skills after your initial driver's class?
Well, they're all supposed to have some sort of classroom portion separate from the task book completion, with the exception of wildland and mobile water supply. Because of,
If they have it.
if they have their pumper, yes. But for aerial, for example, the intention is that you take an aerial class one day, and then you can have your requisite knowledge signed off. And then you go back to your home agency or on another day, perform those skills and have them signed off. That's what happens in a perfect world. Any thoughts or any further discussion on are we good with keeping the general knowledge as part of pumper on that? Okay.
Adam Coleman, Columbia. Just so I'm clear, we want to keep the driver in all the task books?
That's what, yeah,
Can we remove it from one task book? I don't see why we need driver and pumper when you're already an apparatus operator.
Because you're driving this different apparatus potential.
they're gonna be an apparatus operator no matter which of these levels they have.
They only drive squads and they get their driver operator.
I'm just talking on pumper. So you're not gonna have a pump on a squad car. You're not gonna have a pump on anything else
Correct.
besides an engine or tender aerial. whatever you may have. I don't see why we need the driver still in the pumper operator passbook. Now, I understand the driver and if you're moving to a tiller, or any other piece of apparatus, whatever, but on a pumper, you're not driving, you're not gonna get the certification unless you're driving something with a pump on it. You got that in your driver already. It's not a thing.
Not necessarily. There's nothing in drivers that says that you have to drive, that you have to be checked off on driver on an engine.
Pickup, it could be strictly just a pickup. A squad or.
So your apparatus pumper.
For your apparatus driver operator, you don't have to be qualified on a pump, an engine. It could be just a pickup.
Or our agency's primarily, for the record, a medic unit.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith, for the record, just, I take driver, just think of the support person, right, that they're gonna bring out a rehab unit. You're gonna run it through driver. And so that could be just a rig, right, an old ambulance, whatever you have in your agency. And you're still, for your cover for your insurance for your agency, you're putting them through a driver course. They're not driving an apparatus.
Right.
And they're not doing a course with an apparatus, with an engine. So that's, I agree keeping that in there, at least you're doing that skill with the new apparatus or a larger apparatus. You're still running through the driver course. Now, the classroom portion of it, can they be signed off on it? Sure.
Yeah, that's, it's the same chapters,
Same chapters, everything else, but the skill side of it.
2 and 3.
Your agency, you're doing that with an engine. Then that's gonna meet that requirement for their pumper operator. At that point, right?
There's my,
So actually, because you just brought that up, and maybe you talk and think something back to our application. Our application does say that they're already qualified as a pumper operator, or as an apparatus driver operator. For every one of the other task books. So does that just need to be removed, or we're gonna make them do it every task book anyway? Does that pre-qualification need to be removed?
Referring to the actual certification, so NFPA requires you to be a certified driver before you're certified in any other level, which is why it's on the application. Yeah.
Right, if I certify them as what that's reading is if I certify them on a squad pickup, that doesn't qualify them to be an engine driver. They need to go through that same driver course on a pumper as opposed to a pickup truck.
Only the skills part of it.
only the skills,
Skills part of it, correct.
right, the requisite knowledge should still be the same.
Correct, the requisite knowledge is, but the task itself, if they're signed off as an apparatus operator, they met both skills and requisite knowledge. So if we're gonna say that we're gonna keep it in every book, is every book need to be a qualified apparatus operator certification first? Or is it that we're gonna do it again with every task book? If they never get into a pickup truck and get an apparatus operator, if they go straight into an engine and learn how to drive an engine and become an apparatus operator with a pump, we have to turn around and do 2 certificates for that one thing. Is what I'm asking.
Well, you'll have to, so I guess if you're giving them the driver training on your engine that also has a pump, then I guess you're covering the training for both levels of certification. And you could, I guess, do the task books at the same time. As long as you're doing all of the tasks, but you are still going to have the driver certification. I think, are you just saying now that it is that we should take all of the driver tasks out of the books?
No, I'm just saying that somewhere in there, it doesn't quite match up or anything. They have to be an apparatus operator first, before they can be a apparatus operator with a pump.
Yeah,
What is it that an apparatus operator I understand not having redundancy. But how is it that they have to have that one done first and then turn around and do it all again in the next task book? It comes back to.
I mean, that's what the task force in the previous meeting determined. So none of this is that they have to do it. It's just that you guys decided.
For Donald's
This is all your fault.
I think what we've done is a compromise, right? By reducing the 3 boxes on driver, we've agreed that we're gonna require the drive, that you're certified to drive, if you've been checked off to drive that next.
I understand that part, the cone course section of it, I understand that part.
Are you saying you feel like it should just be part of the driver?
I think with that, right, you also learned the classroom portion, the laws, how to travel the road, and you create that foundation at a lower level, but that foundation carries with you throughout every one of those apparatus. So when you come to something, an engine or an aerial, you're focusing a lot on the skill sets of those apparatus with the knowledge you can learn in the classroom portion of all the laws and regulations that go along with driving emergency vehicles.
I agree with that, that's maybe I'm just thinking it differently in my head, but.
I guess we could get into if we don't wanna have the entire task book. But you would all have to agree on what you want in there. So that's up to you guys. I mean, if you wanna have specific pieces of the driver task book in the other task books, that's fine. You just need to determine what those are. What's most important to have, and is it going to be uniform through every level? Or is it going to be different for every level? Obviously, it's easier if we don't have the driver task book in any of them. But if you would like that in there, then the next easiest thing is that they just have one checkbox.
For also for the record, I think there's value in having it in each book to reinforce that those people should be adequate operators of that type of vehicle, cone course, on-road, etc. I think that's important personally. And, I can tell you, like, when, as authority having jurisdiction for pumper operator, I mean, my folks are gonna go through all four of my engines. They're gonna drive all 4 before I sign them on, and they're gonna do it through the phone course. They're gonna do it before I even sign one box, just because I'm a jerk. And they're gonna go do the road course, perfect, before we sign it off. I have firefighters that we haven't signed off, and they've done it multiple times with 3 boxes that we haven't approved because they still have a hard time backing into the bank with a spot. So, obviously, it's gonna be up to the authority of jurisdiction, but I think that has value for us to have in there. We're not gonna do one big task book. We're gonna do a bunch of separate ones. This has value to me.
Scott, for the record, what I hear you saying, Kurt, is your difference, I mean, this is for certified, but you're for qualified.
It's,
So there's that separation between those.
that's a great way to put this.
Okay. So just to recap, we have determined that we want to keep the driver task book in each of the other task books. We want to drop the boxes for all task books down to 1 task. Are there any of the task books that you would like to look at specifically, just other than the check boxes? Just keeping in mind, everything is copied from the NFPA standard, but if there was anything you noticed that seemed inconsistent or off, we're happy to look at that.
Annex included.
Yeah, sorry, the duplicative annex changes also included in that.
I don't have any notes Brian Woodley for the record. I don't have any notes, but then I don't have a tiller at my agency. I don't have an arc truck at my agency, so let's look to the rest of the task force on the.
I mean, they're all listed right from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really changing.
And I don't think, not a lot of tillers and ARFs in the room.
Yeah. Well, they should have participated.
Yep.
Should have jumped on your email the first time around.
Okay, let's see. With that,
I've got another formatting.
oh, okay,
On the last page of Wildland. Space between the requisite skills for 15.5.2 and 15.5.3. Space.
15.5.2.
Actually, 15.5.3 just needs a extra character.
Oh, thank you.
Just stand up against the bottom of that one, you don't recognize.
There we go. Okay. Yeah,
I'm spending way too much time editing stuff lately.
yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it.
We're gonna send you
I'll just, yeah, start sending you my stuff. Okay. Any other things going on that anybody has concerns about? If not, I would say I'll turn it back over to the chair for final discussion and consensus to adopt the task books, I guess, as recommended
Thank you, Brooke.
or with changes.
All right, so we've had discussion and determination on the draft apparatus task books, and we've gone through and provided DPSST with some general guidance with suggested edits and format changes. Unless there's any further discussion or commentary or questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt or by consensus of the group as edited or the balance of the rest of the task force. Ryan?
Ryan Dickerson, just, we're gonna do the one box, is that also gonna include the first page there on how to evaluate performances? So that's gonna need to
Yeah.
change
I'll
the,
edit one of the task books and then basically make that screenshot from that task book.
Okay.
But that's a good thing to.
On Ross.
Okay, so moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
I think there was a delay, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, ayes have it.
Mine was an I, not an A.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. The next, item that we have on, do we want to take a break, Brooke, while you reload?
It's up to you guys.
You guys wanna take a
We
break
only
for a
have
minute?
the,
We have left to
you have probably,
guide certification, I think is our last one. Is that what we have?
the last one, yeah.
oh yeah, guide, sorry,
And
guide.
Guide certification.
We do the,
There's just the brief mention about OARs, which you don't really have to do anything for. I'll just tell you. Yeah. So we probably have like 15-20 minutes of talking left, if that. Do we want to just power through it? Okay.
All right. Continue to power through. So our last objective in our agenda item is to discuss and recommend changes or addendums to the guide to certification as provided for by DPSSD staff. I'll turn it back over to Brooke, and she can go through and outline recommended changes and adopted information for inclusion in the guide to certification as it relates to driver apparatus operators, task books.
So, this is a working document that hasn't been done yet. So generally what we do is we work through all of the, certification requirement, standard and task book changes, and then, also any other things like the FAQ and the helpful information, to update the guide. So from our discussions, some of the important things that we wanted to convey were the concept of the general chapter 4 being in the guide, the idea about communications being able to be something that they can get from another training and that can be applicable to their task book as by the AHJ. Are there any other significant things that we want to include in the guide? I can also mention the task performance evaluation process in that as well.
Do we wanna put in there somewhere about, since drivers, there's aspects of drivers still on every single one of these, then that should be a drug completed using an apparatus at that level for the task book.
That they're going to be using for
Yes.
that type of
That they need to do when they do the driver portion of mobile water supply, they need to do that in a tender. If they're doing it for apparatus with a fire pump, whatever it's called now, they have to do that in a pumper.
Yeah, we can specify that in the guide. I can also specify that in the task books themselves, because I don't think that was made clear previously. So hopefully that will lessen the amount of strike through drivers that you see. With that, I can make those changes. Any other thoughts? I can put a link to the 1091 information, the traffic incident management class.
Or equivalent as determined by the authority on the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Et cetera.
Yeah,
Do we get fire engine sorted?
it's the right color. What color do you want it to be?
I'm joking.
We've got Photoshop. We can make it any color.
I'm jerking your.
Where's the
You
color?
want yellow? Is that the color we're
It's
going?
like.
But always kind of exciting to see. Okay. Anything else, before we move to the next item? Okay, so with that, I will send out, a draft of the task book changes, and then also the guide, so you guys can look at them, before they go to the fire policy committee. Since we did have some significant changes to make. And then just for the OARs, and I'm sorry, Brian, if I'm stepping on your list. Basically, for the OARs, with this meeting today, I'll take this information and work with Kayla and then Jennifer Howell, our rules coordinator. And we will use the NFPA standard and make the updates throughout I think it's 3 different rules where these are listed. With the same prerequisites, and she'll draft that, and then that draft of those rule changes will be presented to the fire policy committee.
And that's how the grade will unfold. Is that all the grade ones?
Yes, those are the ones that are related to this change and that will be affected by this change. Given that 1010 affects so many standards, we will have to open these rules a couple different times. So if there is something that, we miss, we can address that correction in the next round of changes. With that, I think does anybody have any questions specifically about the rules or rule process or how we write those? Sure.
Oh, Brian Lee for the record. I've been noticing that in some of the administrative rules, and I want to just pick on one here just for the moment. In our books, it's page 311. It's chapter 259, section 9, subsection 62, fire service professional certification. Words and definitions in alignment with what NFPA has might be partially contributing to some potential misunderstandings with respect to past performance evaluations and who approves those.
Yeah.
And for example, down here towards the bottom of page 311, it says successfully complete a task performance evaluation or a department DPSST
Mhm.
approved task book for whatever firefighter certification, whatever, list or driver, the evaluation or task book must be approved by the agency head. That would be DPSST, not, because it would say authority having the AHJ.
The department is DPSST, the agency head is the agency.
So therefore, if your TPE is approved by your agency head, you see where we're kind of getting into this, my chief said my TPE is okay to use, but it was supposed to be approved by my DLO.
See what,
So as far as kind of getting some of the administrative rules cleaned up, there's a number of
yeah, and
illustrations like this that really need to be aligned with what we really want the Oregon Fire Service to do. You either use DPSST's TPE or develop your own and send it to your DLO and have it approved following the process with TPEs. And then that's how that's approved. And so maybe there's just needs some language cleanup. in
Yeah.
some of these.
and that's true, and that's probably true for almost every single one of our rules that
And
has
so
been
I think
updated.
this is a good opportunity to walk through those and make sure that
So I think,
What
so
we're doing.
what Brooke was saying earlier
Right.
was that we are planning to have probably like a couple of workers, one for applications and one for task force. Maybe they're the same one, we haven't determined that yet, but I think that would be a really good time to clean up some of that type of language, because we'll probably go through and, the rules and things like that in that.
Sure,
in that,
no, absolutely.
Along with the formatting, but that's a good point. I mean, yeah, we're,
Times change faster
Yeah.
than administrative rules, and so things fall
Absolutely.
behind.
yes, yeah.
And I think that might be where the fire service is getting confused.
Yeah, well,
I would be very surprised.
nobody
This
reads
is
this, but
what's confusing them, but
Well,
you're right, it's definitely needs to be updated.
sometimes I have trouble sleeping at night, so I break out my own.
Great way to get to sleep.
but yeah, there's several things too that just aren't even in rule that we need in rule related to task books and TPDs. So yeah, it definitely needs to be cleaned up. I think that's a really good point, and we'll make sure to kind of go through that, some of
Okay.
that stuff.
Great,
Yeah.
all right. Appreciate that. Anybody else have anything to comment or contribute related to the register certification? Okay, we need a consensus for future
Consensus.
changes
Yep,
pending. Okay, so Brooke is going to make updates and send those out to us for review. So we'll table approval. Would that be appropriate? We table our approval till after?
well,
For the guys.
since the guide is essentially just like a working document, I think we could just,
We don't need a formalized adoption.
no, because
Okay.
it can be changed pretty
Okay.
much anytime.
Formal adoption needed, we can change it on the fly if we
Yeah.
find a typo.
Yeah.
Okay, aside from that, I don't have anything else. So we go to the order unless anybody else has a need for a go back, otherwise I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and close this task force.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by consensus, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Great.
guys have it.
Great. Thank you,
That's a wrap.
everyone.
Ladies.
It's like on seven.
That is definitely our feedback.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.